Hey guys.
White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders stepped out to pour cold water on suggestions Donald Trump's announced troop withdrawal from Syria will embolden Iran and bring a smile to the face of Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Look, the idea that Putin is happy about this is ridiculous. He's not. This puts a greater emphasis and makes them have to actually step up and do something and do more in the region. It puts them at a greater risk. So I think that's just silly.
But that idea came from Putin himself, who applauds the move. Just one day later, the resignation of Trump's Defense Secretary James Mattis. His resignation letter, an 8-paragraph shot across the bow of the Trump administration for appearing to denigrate U.S. allies while embracing autocratic rivals like China and Russia.
Never seen anything like it. Nothing like it.
Michael Carpenter was foreign policy advisor to former Vice President Joe Biden.
This president has shown that he disparages our allies and has called NATO, our most important alliance, obsolete. And so this is the nub of the disagreement between Secretary Mattis and the president.
There's widespread concern about what happens to U.S. foreign policy now that the administration won't have Mattis to explain the benefits to U.S. national security of alliances and the need to rebuke countries that do wrong.
There won't be that check on Trump's worst impulses in the Situation Room in the White House.
Some U.S. lawmakers say this latest departure confirms the White House is in disarray.
There is chaos now in this administration. This week was one of the most chaotic weeks we've ever seen in American government.
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham tweeted, "Our nation is better than this," and called for Senate hearings on the troop withdrawal. He also wants the president to reverse his decision, something Trump refuses to discuss. Ron Charles, CBC News, Washington.
Now, according to reports, Mattis wasn't the only member of Trump's cabinet against the idea of pulling U.S. troops from Syria. In fact, there had been no formal policy review, and from Washington to the Pentagon to the capitals of foreign allies, officials were in the dark right up to the moment Trump announced the withdrawal.
We have won against ISIS. We've beaten them, and we've beaten them badly.
That statement alone raised alarm, because the fighting against ISIS clearly continues. The U.S.-led coalition launched more than 200 airstrikes just last week. But Trump is right in one sense. That coalition has had several bases across Syria targeting areas of ISIS control, and that territory has shrunk to almost nothing. But even if they were completely wiped off that map, ISIS is believed to still have thousands of fighters operating from the shadows. The U.S. has been training local forces to keep ISIS out. That process isn't even close to finished. There are 2,200 U.S. troops in Syria. Their main role is to bolster local Kurdish forces, who do much of the real fighting. Trump's decision leaves the Kurds in the cold. Enter Turkey. They see the Kurds as terrorists, and they've been preparing to push east across northern Syria, promising, in its words, to bury Kurdish fighters there.
The United States is abandoning its allies on the ground. It is abandoning the Kurds. There is a cost in the future to the United States to doing this.
And with the U.S. gone, the fear is Iran will have an unbroken chain of friendly territory all the way to Lebanon. And deeply concerned by that prospect, Iran's rivals, Saudi Arabia and Israel, which leaves Russian President Vladimir Putin, who cheered the move.
The United States, by removing its remaining forces, is leaving the field to Russia, to Iran, and to Turkey, and forfeiting any voice over the future of Syria.
Yes, the U.S. presence in Syria was small, but Trump's sudden decision to move them could have huge consequences. And one more thing. On top of the decision to take U.S. troops out of Syria, President Trump announced he's cutting the number of those in Afghanistan by half, down to about 7,000 soldiers.